Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a Chakras and Cusswords podcast. And we have some breaking news today. So, Joe Biden has decided to not run fully for the presidential campaign. And he has dropped out literally right like as of today. And he's endorsing Kamala Harris. So, there is a lot going on. Can we just talk about the energy? The energy has been so freaking wacky. It has been so crazy. I talked about it a little bit on my YouTube channel and then also on my TikTok. I have some videos up. I actually read Joe Biden's chart. I did a little chart reading probably about like 3 or 4 days ago. And it was basically because he had COVID. So I wanted to read his chart and talk about it because he just got diagnosed with COVID. And it was something that I thought was important because I remember he said that he wasn't planning on dropping out unless he got sick. And I was like, well, he's sick now. And I wonder if this is going to make a difference. So, of course, I wanted to look at his chart and really kind of get a better understanding of like what is going on with Joe Biden. I will say I was definitely not surprised. I've always been very hesitant to not read his birth chart. I did not read his birth chart until about 3 or 4 days ago. I've read Trump's, I've read Pence's, I've read Ron DeSantis. And I'll be honest, the real person that I've always thought that would kind of be in this election was Trump. There's a lot of reasons why. The Jupiter and Gemini, the whole area of what a good communicator he is, and a lot of the energy of how flamboyant and how he is really able to draw the crowd into who he is. And people love him. You know, the ones who don't love him hate him. So it's that very duality type energy. And I had a feeling that Joe was either going to get pulled or there was going to be something that was going to stop him from completely completing the 2024 campaign. And I talked about this a lot. I know I've talked about it during the astrology dates and stuff like that. So I wasn't that surprised, but I was surprised it happened on a full moon, especially this full moon in Capricorn. But we have to remember when we are thinking about this full moon in Capricorn, this full moon in Capricorn is literally a blue moon. It is one of the rarest and most unique moons to it. And there's a lot of energy that's like surrounding that area of impossible. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm living through historical events. But we have to remember that historical events occur every year. The energy's high right now, definitely. And I want to remind you guys that you have to stay consistent in who you are in your areas of life, in your journey, not to get upset, not to get too involved in certain things. I do think politics is something that the media, the area of collective, it's kind of used against us in that sense. The fact that politics is such a division. There's the Republicans, there's the Dems, and it's just kind of like this energy that surrounds us and we just get intertwined with it. It's very easy to do, right? When we think about it. But I decided that I want to read Joe Biden's birth chart, and I am going to kind of talk about some of the things that I talked about 3 days ago with his chart. One of the main things that I want to talk about is the fact that he had a lot of transition of the Mars and Uranus energy that occurred in Taurus, and that was basically going over the 6th house, where the 6th house traditionally is a Virgo house, and that area represents health in that area, represents patterns. And when I was reading his chart, I definitely pointed that out. But I feel like now today we have this bigger understanding of how easy it is for certain astrological alignments to really create the blueprint of who we are, of things that happen. So I'm going to read you his chart just kind of so you get a better understanding. Of course, I'm going to have the chart up. This is a full dive into his birth chart. If you want to hit the mini reading, it's up on the YouTube channel and TikTok. But I wanted to give something back to my podcast listeners because you guys are like my OGs. You're the number ones. If it wasn't for you, there wouldn't be a YouTube. There wouldn't be a TikTok. So I definitely wanted to give like a full reading. And also, I am going to do Kamala Harris's birth chart. It sounds like she's definitely going to be the 2024 Democratic candidate. I know Gavin Newsom has endorsed her as well, and so has the Clintons. So the Clintons and the Newsom, automatic, they're going to have her run through. I was surprised. I thought Newsom would probably take over. It's going to be very interesting to see who she picks as her running mate. I feel like this is a political plot twist every time we turn around. And I don't know like politicians. Like I just know the main politicians, the ones who are talked about in the media. Obviously I know of Gavin Newsom's because I live in California and he's the governor of California, but I don't necessarily know like politicians from other states. So once I start hearing names, then I'll kind of look into their charts and see what I think. But for Kamala Harris, I have not read her chart. In all honesty, I don't know anything about her astrological placements. I do know that she has a reputation as being very, I would say very like, okay, so I want to remind you guys that I live in California. So I have heard multiple issues with Kamala. I've heard that she was, a woman who sentenced a lot of young African-American youth for incidences when she was a public defender or when she was on the area of law, that she was very, I guess you could say, stern with minor crimes such as like marijuana use, and that she was actually responsible for a lot of prosecutions of young men who had very minor drug offenses. So there's kind of part of the community that loves her, and then there's part of the community that does not love her. I would have to look at her full birth chart, and I'll do a birth chart reading. I just need time because I want it to be like an in-depth birth chart reading. So let's get into Biden. So Biden was born November 20th, 1942, 8:30 a.m. He has a sun in Scorpio and he has a moon in Taurus. So that opposing sign energy, he was born kind of like around that full moon phase, right? The moon was transitioning over to create a alignment of that energy. He definitely was leading up to the full moon phase, but he wasn't necessarily on the exact of a full moon, but he does have a lot of astrological energy that seems dominant. He also has an ascendant in Sagittarius, and he has his midheaven in Virgo. His dominant planets include Scorpio, Gemini, and Sagittarius, and Uranus, and Jupiter, and of course his sun. His dominant houses are his 12th house, his 7th house, his 8th house, and he is a nice mixture of water and air, and also very fixed. Joe is very fixed. And that was something that I talked about, that I definitely think that as a fixed sign, this was a difficult decision for him. I feel like people have been telling him to drop out. We've been seeing it in the news, but now it's just, so much more dominant. Like, how can he not drop out when everybody is going after him? When I look at Joe's chart as a whole, it has some nice correlations, mostly a lot of planetary alignment around the 5th to the 12th house. I like the fact that he's a mix of air and water. It lets me know that he has that emotional tendencies and he does feel one with the collective. So Joe has a sun in Scorpio in the 12th house, and it is that energy that really resembles like certain things and certain energies of sexual activities, and also it has that assertiveness. I'm sure Joe was a young beast in his days, but that's neither here or there, right? Let's just say Jill's probably a very happy woman. I'm sure he has a big ego. And what's also interesting is when we see the sun in the 12th, we often think that energy could be very assertive and high. Also, we have to remember the 12th is that energy of the ego, and there's also certain considerations of cosmic awareness. I feel like he has some sense of cosmic awareness. I feel like he was a little bit naive for some point, but in all honesty, his thoughts and his emotions are really kind of playing out in that energy of doing what's right for him. And I feel like he could be guided as a puppet, and now they're seeing that it's not the time for him to be. It's probably better that he just steps down. Also, he has the Mercury in Scorpio at 21 degrees, and that's in the 12th house as well. And that's really, the Mercury in Scorpio lets me know that he's able to analyze, and he has that realization where it's very strong, and also he has kind of a quiet nature to him. We've seen it. A lot of people are like, does he have some sort of dementia or Parkinson's? I do feel that Joe is still there, like he's still present, but there's definitely something that's unconsciously bringing some type of energy towards him in a naive way. In a way where maybe he was a little bit gullible, maybe he was very unable to bow down. I mean, he finally did, right? He did bow down gracefully, as one might say. And then we see the Venus in Scorpio in the 12th house, and we see the Mars in Scorpio in the 12th house. The Mars in Scorpio definitely feels a little centered around the introspective area of him being a little bit moody. And also the Venus in Scorpio lets me know that he hides energies around the relationship. So I'm not surprised that he's definitely had some energy that has been, I guess you could say, has been very passive, or is not an energy that he talks about too frequently. We do know that he's had lots of obstacles in his life, but it also seems that he has this challenge, this kind of like transformation challenge of his relationships, and it kind of goes forward. The moon in Taurus lets me know that it is in the 5th house, and he has this strong emotional base of the area of creativity and also the area of sensitivity, and intertwining them as he is a leader. He's passionate, he's assertive, and he is very centered around certain areas that feel divine to him. He has a Jupiter in Cancer in the 8th house, which is interesting because the Jupiter in Cancer, I could also feel like there is an energy that lets him, and it's at 25 degrees, it lets him be sociable, it lets him be friendly, it lets him be charismatic. He seems very playful. He also seems very emotionally based. He definitely seems loving. And sometimes when we have that energy where it's very big and broad, that energy, sometimes people can take advantage. And I always get a lot of slack because I have a Mars in Cancer, and everybody's like, oh God, you must be such a crybaby. Let me tell you, I can cry like no other. And I feel like Joe wants to heal the world like no other, but realistically and centered around certain shadow states, because we have to remember the moon has tons of shadow states, that he definitely has a fond love for certain unrealistic accomplishments. He had a good run. Now it's time to pack your bags and kind of take a nap there. He's definitely aware, and he's definitely self-indulgent. So he did like the area of expansion and creation. One of the things I want to talk about is he has a Saturn in Gemini in the 7th house, where I could see that area definitely of communication in the house of partnerships, ideally, is creating an area where it doesn't feel so realistic. And also that energy also does have some strong potential for him being hurt, and also for him being told, like, be quiet. And I definitely think they told him, like, Joe, shut the fuck up now, okay? You just need to shut the fuck up. And, and I definitely think Joe's feelings have been hurt. But I blame the Democratic Party, in all honesty. They knew this before. And when we look at the 7th house, we also look at the areas of communication, and then also Uranus is in there. So, of course, the areas of communication feel very spontaneous. This was spontaneous. This was abrupt. But it had to be done, unfortunately. And I do think that he also has a strong strive to want to still be involved, but they kind of like cut him at the knees. Oh, they took old man Joe out. They really did. They really did. And we'll get into this more when we go over the when we go over the current transits. He also has a Neptune in Libra at 1 degrees, which the Neptune in Libra lets me know that there is that area of professionalism. He dreams big in areas of partnerships. Like, I'm not surprised he was the wingman for the majority of his political career. Let's be honest. Joe was vice president to Barack. Many of us were like, oh, Joe Biden, he's cool. Okay. But we didn't know much about Biden. Then Barack, passes the torch to Hillary. Hillary loses to Trump. I honestly think they should have put Biden in the first time, but whatever. Passes it to Trump. Trump does Trump. Biden comes in. And then we have to reintroduce ourselves to the wingman. Who is this guy? Where'd he come from? Do we like him? Do we not like him? God damn, why has he been in politics so long? Alrighty. So he's basically played the backseat, the passenger driver, for a very long majority of his career. And I don't necessarily know if that was the best thing, but it was the realistic thing for him, because this Neptune is in the 10th house. So he did finally achieve his goal as being a good president, or being president. If you feel like he was a good president, that's up to you. If you feel like he wasn't a good president, that's up to you. But he was a president. But he also had the Neptune in Libra in the 10th house, which lets me know that there were some areas of illusions, disillusions, and reality, especially in the area of partnerships and the energy of career. You just have to remember the 10th house is about career. So, very interesting state when we think about it. When I look at that energy, it does feel like that 7th house, he had like an obligation. I feel like they were kind of playing him like a puppet at one point. Like, there was points where I was like, God, let this man retire. But I don't know. At the point, they couldn't figure it out, right? So, whatever. But now, I think after COVID and that Uranus and Mars conjunction in the area of his 6th house really let him know it's time to pack up them bags, baby. And it's time to... And I think he had an emotional awakening, in all honesty. Like, he's not on his deathbed, but he knows that realistically, doing another 4 years is not something that he should be doing. I don't think it's something he wants to do. So that's why I think I had such a hard time reading his chart, because I honestly do not feel like I think he knew it was time to tap out, but he's fucking stubborn. Look at all that Scorpio and Taurus alignment. He's fucking stubborn. He's like, you guys aren't getting around out of this, and especially with that emotional confusion tied into his area of friends, family, and partnerships. A lot of contracts felt very warm and fuzzy to him until he come to the realization that they're not just that warm and fuzzy. They're very much centered on reality, and what sounded good in 2020 is not sounding good for 2024. What a difference 4 years can bring. There's likely some energy of karma tied into here. Not necessarily from his, I would say from some of the decisions he has made in this presidency. I do also think that there's some energy of karmic lessons in partnerships. So it was like, okay, and I understand like Congress and the Senate really rule the House, but the whole thing with the abortions and stuff like that, it's like people felt very betrayed. You know, you vote in a Democrat for certain reasons. I mean, I could tell you the majority of my votes go because of women's rights and areas of oppression of certain people. And then you see the oppressed still being oppressed, and it's like, what the fuck? So I could definitely see how there was some energy with like, it might be time for old man Joe to relax and do some golf and take a nap and hang out with Jill. I could tell you Jill gets bored with him. I could just see it from the body language. Then we have Pluto in the 8th house. The Pluto in the 8th house is aligned with Leo. That energy of leader, it just, okay. And it is at 7 degrees. Like, I feel like Joe could be a teacher, a good teacher. I don't necessarily know if he could be a leader for the whole sense of his career. I'm not surprised he's married to a teacher also. So his energy of transformation occurs where he has been thrown into the spotlight of leading. When we think of Chiron is also in the Leo degree. So, and it's at 28. Go figure. Very much an energy that feels dominant and very much an energy that feels aligned with uniqueness of healing in the areas of leadership. And also, so he's going to be famous for this. Like, they're not going to write about Joe Biden saved us during the pandemic. They're not going to write about that. They're going to write about, if there even is fucking books, they're going to write about Joe Biden dropping out at the 2024 presidency. Like, that's what he's going to be famous for, is the healing that had to take place after saying goodbye to his presidency. I mean, just, he was going for re-election. I don't know. How do you play these things out, right? The ascendant in Sagittarius definitely feels optimistic, but then it has that area of naive that comes with the Jupiter energy. And he has a midheaven in Virgo. So what can we do about old man Joe? Well, we got to move on. Right? For those who want to know of some of the things that are occurring in his dailies right now, he definitely has a lot of energy. So let's talk about the energy of the collective before we get into Joe's personal energy. So we have June 21st, right before the actual full moon. it's been leading up to this area of full moon in Capricorn, our second full moon in Capricorn, and also it is at 29 degrees, which is a Capricorn degree. So we have the full moon in Capricorn. We see Joe has dropped out from the presidential nomination, and he is definitely putting his decisions to his fellow Democrat, Kamala. This is what he wrote on his Twitter. My fellow Democrats, I have decided not to accept the nomination and to focus all of my energies on my duties. As president for the remainder of my term, my first decision was the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president. And it's been the best decision I've made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement to Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this. Oh, man. I got to read her chart before I say if I think she's going to be the next president. Do I want her to be? Fuck yeah. I mean, why not have a woman? But do we vote for her just because she's a woman? Fuck yeah. Okay. Sun, he has a sun with a strong trine with his natal sun in Scorpio. But okay, so let me get back on focus. I shouldn't have drank Chardonnay before I started to record, but you know what? I am. So we have a Venus in Leo, a sextile Jupiter in Gemini. Can you hear the Chardonnay? It tastes so good because I have some ice. Okay, so this energy is the collective energy. The Venus in Leo, sextile Jupiter in Gemini. It feels like socialization. It also feels like the area of leadership and information coming all out to us. I know on the astrology dates I said this was a high energy date because the transits are fucking in your face. July 21st, same day, Mercury in Leo squares Uranus in Taurus. When we think about the energy of the leader, creating a direct square, it feels spontaneous. Also, we have that material gains. We also have to remember that he is a moon in Taurus. So, of course, it's going to feel aligned. Big egos are getting a rude awakening today. And it might have been his. It also might have been some other people. I'm going to tell you, every fucking astrologer I have seen has been like, I've predicted this. Okay. Just like they predicted the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. I'm going to say, as an astrology girly and a fan of astrology, you bitches need to start bringing dates and times. Because, in all honesty, I didn't think he was going to be the 2024 candidate for a while now. But did I say a date and time? Fuck no. But you know, you guys are going to sit there and be like, I predicted this. I'm going to start to, because everybody and their freaking mama. But that's astrology, right? It's written in the stars for us to read it. Mercury in Leo squares Uranus and Taurus. Definitely ego's bruised. And I also think when we think about that energy of Taurus, that fiction, that area of the messenger really coming out. Sun in Cancer, trine Neptune and Pisces. To me, this speaks of the spiritual enthusiastic realization that dreams don't always come true. Egos, higher energy, and self-awareness is really out there. And then we have this sun in Cancer, the energy of the feminine. You know, Kamala, here she comes. Hopefully she's going to save the day, especially on a lot of pro-women stances. And especially on a lot of stances that a lot of us felt that Joe kind of threw out or maybe neglected. So we will see. Also, the sun in Cancer trines Neptune in Pisces does feel like emotions and dreams have been shattered on the most rarest full moon of the season, but especially in areas of leadership. So we will see, right? I definitely feel that there is some type of cosmic alignment this spiritual battle is just getting deeper and deeper. But this is the kicker when we think about current transits. We have a Mars in Gemini trines Pluto in Aquarius. Now, this energy, we have to remember, we are the collective. We are that energy of the Aquarius, of the collective. We're listening, we're hearing, we're speaking, we're taking it all in. And then we have it trined with Pluto, that energy of change, death to a candidate. I mean, death to the area of him moving forward as a candidate. Mars in Gemini, aggressive, assertive, trined with Pluto in Aquarius, that area of death, that area of the Scorpio. And look at the Scorpio. It's Joe. We're talking about Joe. We're having all this dialogue about Joe Biden, the Scorpio. What the fuck? And we see that this could be a positive change, right? Trines are beautiful. They work in areas of 3. Now, when you tell me political parties and politicians don't use astrology, what? I'm going to say that's gibberish. Obviously, they do. They could have told us this on fucking Friday. They could have told us this on fucking Monday. But no, they chose to tell us this when there's a full moon in Capricorn and we have a Mars in Gemini trine with Pluto in Aquarius. People, wake up and listen to the astrology forecast. Shit's about to get fucking crazy and real, but we're okay. We're just remember, you're okay, I'm okay. And as long as you got some Chardonnay, it's all okay. So hooray for Chardonnay. The thing that really I thought had some long-term aspects when I looked at him, I remember he did have, I did do this chart about 3 days ago. His Mars has transitioned, but I remember he had a Mars squared his natal Mars. And at the time that he first got COVID, Mars has now transitioned from that point, but he has a moon squared his natal chart where his ego is definitely bruised and that energy feels unaligned. We have to remember that moon in Taurus really happening in that energy of the 6th. Also, we have the Saturn opposing his natal midheaven. So it is time for him to take responsibilities of acknowledging that he's not in it to win it. And that's okay, Joe. Take time. Live your life. There's time to just call a truce. And he has to call the truce with his inner work. And I respect him for doing it. Because I'll be goddamn if we spent another 4 years with somebody who was being used. And I really feel like towards the end there was some using of him. This is a time that we definitely look at all the hard work and achievements he has played, and I'm sure he's doing it as well. But then also he has a Uranus that is in strong opposition of his natal sun. And that is creating a dynamic where we really see it of that energy of feeling spontaneous and also closing the identity of who he is in some aspects, right? We have to remember that Uranus is very assertive and Uranus is very rude. When we think about it, Uranus is going to go and just cause up a bunch of problems. And Uranus is all about creating that, right? Creating that, oh my goodness, wow, what is going on? And Uranus does that quite nicely. So it's definitely, a strong energy around him that he has to acknowledge, and I'm glad that he did. When I look at the Pluto squared his natal moon, we have to remember that Pluto is in Aquarius, so there's a strong square with the natal moon, and there's definitely some emotional transformation coming up. Traditionally, that Pluto is right around the 2nd house, right around that energy of the second. So it definitely feels like it's taking a hold of him. And it's creating that area of transition that he cannot deny. So it's definitely interesting how this all kind of plays out with him. And since this Pluto is transitioning over the second house, we see that energy of possessions, and we also see that material framework really coming out. So, wow, what a day. What a day. Big day, right? The transitioning Venus in the 9th house is everlasting when we think about it in areas of how we will see him in philosophy, how we will see him in time. The transitioning Mercury, we're all talking about him, right? A lot of people have been jumping to conclusions for a while, but now we've really seen it. The Mars in Gemini in the 6th house. I hate to say it, that's what did him under. And I remember I was talking that let's see what happens with Mars and Gemini with Trump, because I think that affects his 10th house. Who knows? Maybe Kamala's going to take him out at the knees. We will see. Transitioning Jupiter in the 7th house. So definitely highlighting the area of communication, especially with the partnerships and that area where it's giving optimism and positive emotions to some extent. But then we have to remember that Uranus and Taurus in the 6th house brings that sudden change. So I wanted to do a little reading for you guys because I love my podcast listeners, and also, I just wanted to touch base, remind everybody if you want to hear the snippet, it's kind of like this, but it's shorter and smaller. And also remind you that we do have a meditation coming out tomorrow, and it is about the wounded warrior Chiron, the wounded healer Chiron. I keep calling him the wounded warrior. It just sounds cooler. And also check out the reading for your full moon in Capricorn. Definitely a good time to check it out. All right, everybody, have an amazing day, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and please share this with a cosmic baddie, mystical maven, somebody like you who loves astrology and everything spooky and creepy. I mean, astrology is a little spooky and creepy because how do we know all this stuff? I don't know. All right, everybody, have a great day. Bye.